I like your crinkles. You totally just streamed those crinkles.
Cool.
Crunchy.
Greetings, geeks. Welcome to episode 406 of Geeks in Space. I'm Rob Commander Taco Malda, and today I am here with, oh man, so many good people. So many fine folks. I'm going to start with in order of health. Nate, how are you doing?
I'm good. Hi there, I'm Nate.
What's your malady today?
Chest cold.
All right, Bates.
My name is Jeff Bates. My malady is that I'm still recovering from a head cold. So if Nate and I get together, we can be like an entire upper torso cold.
Wow, that's cool.
We are Zan and Zara. I'm Zan.
Roseboom?
I just have a little bit of sinus infection, so I'll join the club.
All right, so we'll end with the big guns, Mr. Christabona.
I'm actually at the tail end of a whole body cold, which is fine. I stopped taking the Alka-Seltzer Plus recently, and then while on the ski slopes on January 1st, I tackled a mountain, and the mountain won, and I dislocated my shoulder, and so I'm in a sling.
How much longer are you in that thing for?
Well, I have the orthopedic appointment today. Physical therapy tomorrow starts. I can move my arm around and stuff, but I overdid it yesterday, so I woke up this morning to just the worst pain. But yeah, I will say, so I fell, and I was like, oh, that feels like a dislocation, even though I've never dislocated anything in my life. But it was like a muscular pain, not like a knifey pain. And so they took me into the urgent care there at the ski resort. And they're like, you look fine. Nothing wrong with you. Hey, let's take your jacket off. And they're like, whoa, okay. Yeah, that's dislocated because my arm was 6 inches lower than it should have been.
No visible bone.
Yeah, no visible tears or anything like that, but significant internal bruising, right? So they put a sheet around my armpit here, and they pulled me that way. And they just lifted my arm back into place. And it was, honestly, if they could bottle that as a drug, I would be addicted. It was such a relief.
Wait, is it more or less relief than when you really have to go to the bathroom and you're finally able to go to the bathroom? Like on the pleasure scale, what's your relief level?
Well, I'm not as fecally oriented pleasure.
I'm not talking about fecal. I'm talking about...
You're always talking about fecal.
No, it's really different. It's really different. It's just like this. It's not a rush. It's just you go from, 20 blood pressure points higher to 10, to 10 lower. You go like from you're sweating and your arm is just like this little nova of pain to nothing. And you're like,
unlike
so good. Yeah.
Unlike you, Jeff Bates, most of us are not in excruciating pain when we have to pee.
Yeah, or poop. The other thing is, you guys have probably heard me say it before, but like the best feeling before this was if you get punched in the face a lot in a fight and then someone stops, it feels really good to not get punched in the face. It's kind of like on that spectrum, except for better.
All right, so what I've got from you now is some important safety advice. Don't get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Well, not multiple times for sure.
Oh, okay. Once is fine.
But when it stops, it feels great. Just for the record. So, and I don't get in a lot of fights. It's been literally decades. And this was my first ski injury in 38 years of skiing. So
I think I've told you this before, but I've only gone skiing like 3 times in my life. But the second or third time that I ever went skiing was with my friends, and their dad broke his arm, and we all had to go to the ER afterwards. So I don't like skiing anymore because I was like 9, and the first time I went skiing, got to go to the hospital.
I usually ski in powder too, so it's like when you fall, it's like falling on just a bunch of pillows, and it's just the best. This was just, I looked behind to look at my son and see where he was at, and I just caught an edge, and I just went flying, and I just took it all right here. And I've got a little ice pack on it, that's why it's all crinkly sounding. So.
Excellent. Well, now Jake knows when he hears that noise or sees your weird armband, he knows the story.
The crackling is the ice, not the rotator cuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh gosh. Yeah, no, I have a little teeny fracture, but I think it's fine. Well, I'll post links to the X-rays in the description below. No, I won't. But I got them. So
That violates HIPAA, I think.
what's that?
That violates HIPAA, I think.
Yeah, probably. Right.
So before I go into the Taco Zone headlines, do we have quorum to talk about Star Wars, or is that just we want to stay away from that yet?
I've seen it.
I haven't seen it, but I'm fine talking about it.
I'm in that same boat.
Same here.
All right, well, let's wait until a third person is seated at least before we blow our wad, because I have many things to say.
No, we should just talk about it. Screw Jeff.
We should just talk about it because
I
I think there's enough to say about the fact that the three of us haven't seen it and don't seem like we're in a rush to.
But I would caveat that by saying I go to a movie basically every Saturday, so I've seen Little Women. So
how was that?
We Little Women is fine.
So what did you think of the musical numbers with Amanda Seyfried?
With Amanda Seyfried. So here's the thing that I'll say about Little Women. I saw it in an audience that was incredibly full of women, unsurprisingly. They were average sized. They were evenly distributed according to the local norms.
Okay.
Well, you didn't measure them, so you're just. This is just your guessing at this point.
This is Rob's first podcast after his arrest.
That's right. So it's been 2 weeks, man. I've been eating bread, moldy bread and lobster this whole time. What was interesting to me, so I've never read the book, but obviously every woman in this audience had read the book. And it was actually kind of cool to hear like the gasps and awes and surprises at the character moments, because I imagine that this is what half of those women felt like when like Aragorn, draws the sword and does the thing, or like
that's Sting. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Aragorn's not drawing
That's
Sting.
not Sting.
I know, but I'm just saying, like when you're watching.
But yeah, no, Naruto. Like when you see, the reforged blade, like that's what I feel when I see Star Wars, or when I see Captain America, grab Thor's hammer. These are books that I read in the 80s.
When the Riders of Rohan show up.
Yes.
Right.
There you go.
I would go when the ghosts show up. That's a great one.
When the Ents are wiping the floor with all
Starship Troopers style.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was my experience in the audience, is that it was really cool to see like a influential fandom book, because even with Harry Potter, like there's no influential fandom book that I've seen in the theater that I'm not like, that I haven't read the book or I have a good functional understanding of. And this was cool to vicariously live through the joy of fans of a completely different fandom. The movie's fine. I had a hard time with a few parts of it. It's a little slow, but I mean, it's a romantic period piece based on a book set around the Civil War. So that's not going to be my.
I missed when we transitioned into being an Oprah Book Club podcast.
Yeah. So just to be clear, there's no swords and no magic.
Nope, none.
Or zombies.
No spaceship, nothing like that.
Nope.
Are
Just
there
literally
Mandalorians?
little women. All right.
They are regular-sized women struggling with growing up in a world that is challenging for a woman in the 1800s.
Got it.
And
Good thing we fixed all that stuff.
That's right. It's better now. But anyway, to Star Wars. I would rate it on the better end of good, but not in the great category. How about that?
I thought that Bob Chipman said it best. He's like, it's like pizza or sex. Even when it's bad, it's pizza and sex. So, and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of, it was a Star Wars movie. There was lightsabers. There was pew pew, ship, boom boom. It was fine.
Is this an appropriate time to talk about one of my major issues with Adam Driver's sword, where the guard is made also out of lightsabers? Like, that is the opposite of why you have a guard on a sword, you ingrate.
I think it's completely appropriate for you to discuss this.
There was a rumor that was a Johnny Ives idea.
That makes perfect sense.
That does make perfect sense. Like that, and just makes me mad.
Yeah, it should, because
at a dinner, Johnny Ives sat next to J.J. Abrams and said that he wanted a lightsaber that was crackly and broken.
So I like the crackly. The crackly was cool. I dug the crackly, I have to admit. But
so okay, let me just spit out a few things. My first time through, I had a bunch of problems, and I watched it twice just to give it a fair shake. My major problems, I found when Chewbacca gets the medal, I found that really like somebody read Reddit. But I rewatched it and I read a couple of comments, and the thing that I missed, and this is maybe I'm dumb, but maybe this is a director problem. Leia was clutching it during her death scene. Which is actually really logical. It's a token that represents her relationship to Han. She's trying to communicate using the Force with her son. She's connecting with this object, and then after her death, the item is given to Chewbacca by a mutual friend. It's logical, but I think I missed a shot. Because there needed to be like one or two more shots of her showing the medal to not make that moment cheesy. But the hardest part is Palpatine. I mean, you've just got to say
so lame.
Palpatine. Okay, but here's the problem. I see it. You have the following choices. You introduce a brand new bad guy in the third act of a trilogy. You turn Adam Driver into the ultimate bad guy. Or
not just a Scarlett Johansson.
That's true. You bring back like a Darth Maul or something, which is quantifiably worse.
Cool, right?
Darth Maul's fine. I think he's.
But he was cut in half though.
Well, yeah, but he was back in Solo, and he was back in the Clone Wars.
No, but he was back in the past in Solo, so it's fine.
That's true. No, I think he's dead. I think he died for realsies in not in Rebels.
Yeah,
I think he died for realsies, but I could be wrong on that.
Well, I think it was when Joe March, approached him on the plains and said, "No, Darth Maul, you can't take these little women away from me." And then so.
Yep, and then Anne died, and then Anne died, and everybody cried. So I don't know. Palpatine's the hardest thing for me to swallow because that was a big piece of the Rian Johnson Star Wars.
I don't know, man. I really think General Hodo in Little Women was way harder to swallow.
I liked General Hodo in Little Women. The way she blew up their cottage was awesome. The audio drops out, and like the piano is destroyed.
Yeah,
the piano being destroyed was really a touch of artistic masterpiece.
by flinging it at light speed at the Buffalo.
Oh man, we're gonna spend this whole time stuff for women.
Sorry, I'm just still stuck on Ives being the one behind the thing that irritates me most about the light. It's just unsafe.
He's also the one behind the toaster Mac. He's also the one behind that weird mouse that charged at the bottom of the mouse. I mean,
what about the round?
Not perfect.
I own that mouse.
Oh, the hockey puck mouse. Remember that? A monstrosity of RSI wounds. I mean, no.
I do remember that.
How many hundreds of times? I had one of those mice. We had one of those on the recording studio machine for days back in the day. And how many times did you grab that mouse and find that it was 10 degrees off where you thought it was and had to reposition your hand on the mouse? I'll tell you how many times. It was every single time you grabbed the mouse. You had to reposition your hand because it was not in the right place.
I missed you guys. We went too long without recording.
That's true. Okay, so Palpatine was rough. Basically, I have a theory that you could basically cut out the entire desert planet thing that they inserted late in the first act. You could basically cut that entire scene out because they only actually give you 3 pieces of information in there. They introduce Lando. They introduced the notion of force healing into a film, which had been previously only revealed like 24 hours earlier on The Mandalorian, which is freaking awesome. What was my third? What's the third thing? Lando. And then they get the MacGuffin. They get the targeting MacGuffin that lets them get to the next location. And so if you just remove that entire set, you can put everything on Exegol, which is the second planet that they were on, and then you can eliminate like 15 minutes of a party that doesn't really do anything. The really cool fight scene that they have where she chops the wing off the TIE fighter, you can move that to Exegol and it doesn't matter. But like the whole movie is, you simplified the wrong stuff. They added one of the hobbits and gave him a bunch of lines that they didn't give to Rose Tico. So you gave me a new character and watered down an old character. Like the whole thing is like, I feel like what happened was Colin Trevorrow had a script. They were stuck with the sets because the sets had already been designed. And so they were like, well, you got to go to these 3 places. And we've already done enough concept art and modeling on these things that to make the release date, you're going to have to include these 3 or 4 things. And that was rough. That was rough.
Yeah. So there were 2 things about Rise of Skywalker that just, one drove me absolutely up the wall, and the other was a huge relief. The thing that was a huge relief was they killed off Greg Grunberg, because I just think he's the worst actor in the world. Okay, so good murder. The thing that absolutely drove me up the wall is, you remember in the very beginning where they're light speed jumping through all these environments. I was like, basically, weren't they just Hodo maneuvering 5 planets? Shouldn't all of them just have been obliterated?
Okay,
it's just so much crud. Yeah, but there's no good explanation. There is matter occupying the same space at the same time in every single one of those scenes.
All right, shut your yap. Now they justified it. Right, they explained why. The reason is that's actually the exact same maneuver that Han did in order to get in The Force Awakens, how he landed on, what was it, Death Killer planet.
Yeah,
he did the first leg of that thing. The reason that he was able to do that was because of you remember throughout that film, they were talking about how they bypassed the condenser or whatever they were talking about in that movie. It was the modifications that had been made to the Falcon on Jakku that made that technology possible. But Rey was the one who had the expertise because she did the modifications, which is why they were mad at her, or she was mad at them that they were doing it without her, because she's the one that has the technical expertise to make light skipping possible. Okay. Now, I can totally agree with your problem with it, and there's legitimate complaint with it, but the film did make a feeble attempt to justify it, and it does tie in to The Force Awakens in a fairly reasonable way.
All right.
Oh,
well,
so
I mean, you're not wrong.
You just gotta bypass the condenser, and then you can do everything.
Yeah,
I got it.
Just turn on your anti-impact circuit. You know?
Who cares? What garbage?
You got your back end.
and this is the thing about Star Wars, and I've said this so many times. It's just so darn lazy.
It's a kids' movie.
It's always been lazy.
Star Wars.
I don't mind.
Star
the kids
Wars
thing,
is a fantasy film that has sci-fi aspects to it.
Yep.
Trying to tie too much actual science into Star Wars, it doesn't work because it's silly.
Red Letter Media said it best. It's a movie about space wizards for children.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Okay, let's move on. What's next?
Someone wanted to make a children's version of Dune, and so George Lucas wrote Star Wars.
So did we watch the trailer for the new Dune from Denis Villeneuve?
I haven't seen it yet.
No, post it.
I think there's a trailer out, but there's been a lot of news, especially at the end of last year, about the coming Dune show. I think it's in 2020. It may be 2021. I mean,
I think it's 2021.
Is it on Blumper?
Astonishing casting, though. Like maybe we'll finally get the Dune we deserve.
Well, did you watch the sci-fi series where they try to go through like 3 or 4 of the books?
I tried and I couldn't.
It's hard.
And you know what it was? It was a very superficial reason I didn't watch it. They were all too attractive, and it looked like it was filmed with an iPhone or with like an old camcorder.
It looked like a soap opera. Like
it was very soap opera color balanced, and everyone had a British accent, but it was like that sort of fey British accent where it's
they tried to be more consistent with the books in that version.
Yep,
but it didn't.
Which isn't
a
bad idea, but they got all the bad actors, to do it. They like, hey, let's have a community play of Dune, and it's like,
that's why I couldn't make my way through it.
And this was during the nadir of sci-fi's descent. I mean,
Yeah, I don't think they had a lot of cash to make it. So
No.
I mean, they literally had a hand puppet.
I mean, it
in
was
one part
it was
of
sand
the
snakes
show,
on
so.
a plane level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll watch it no matter what.
I'll watch it.
But I've only read the first book. I got about 100 pages into the second book, and I was all F this.
You are the worst.
Mr.
It
Bates.
gets a little complicated.
Not really. The first 3 books are pretty kind of sci-fi canon. I mean, like, it's not that complicated.
Fourth book is, yeah.
Yeah, books 4, 5, and 6 are a different series entirely, and we should just treat them that way.
I felt like
remember his son's
I
books
was
don't
reading
exist.
Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy.
What? In
Sorry.
book 2, he becomes book 3, he becomes a sandworm. How is that Deuteronomy? He becomes an immortal god, and you're like, oh, this is prohibitions against cutting your hair. What?
And lots of org charts of family histories. Joe begat Fred.
Yeah.
Is that Deuteronomy? I don't remember.
I think that's Numbers. I mean, they
Wait,
do it. They do
do
it.
sandworms? Oh, is there after they become a sandworm? Do they have children that are human, or are they past breeding at that point?
No,
But if your brother's sandworm wife dies, you have to marry her. That's part of it. So.
Thanks, Leviticus.
Ugh, I hate it. Okay, there's a new Mutants trailer. That movie's been in development hell for like 5 years. It's a straight up horror movie, and the thing that I think is hysterical about that
is it going to be a horrible movie or it's a horror movie?
Probably yes. But the thing that's great about it is I guess they shot it in like 2017 and then they tried to do reshoots like 2 years later, but all the cast
looks
like 15, so now they all look like grown-ups, and apparently it's just a disaster.
Can't they use deep fakes to reverse age them?
They're gonna get there.
Yeah, like in The Irishman. Yeah.
Still haven't seen The Irishman. That's on my.
I haven't either. I guess I'll see it at some point, but
it's a big commitment.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, I could watch the new Dune series.
I've literally watched The Mandalorian twice, the entire series.
I'm still only an episode into The Mandalorian because I want to watch it with Laszlo. And
I'm 4 episodes in, and it strikes me that like they took the fantasy theme and replaced it with a Western theme. Like,
absolutely. Well, it is so much Lone Wolf and Cub.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I feel like
Perfect.
Yep. Lone Wolf and Cub.
Yep.
I don't know. I love that they used Pedro Pascal. He's just a great actor. I love his voice. I don't even know if he's the guy in the helmet, but I'm digging it. So
I mean, he is in one episode.
Oh, does he take his helmet off?
What do you think?
No.
Spoilers, come on.
It's illegal.
You can't have an entire season of a show with a main actor wearing a face mask and then never take it off.
I think if it's Pedro Pascal.
I think you could have.
I think you could have.
Yep.
Now there was
your insufficient dedication to the Force, Mr. Mulder.
Check my tweet history. I called that on the premiere. But I did. I had on my list of things that I wanted to see. The thing I wanted to see the most was a Frank Oz puppeted Force Ghost Yoda, because use that to connect to Baby Yoda, somehow. That'd be so fun.
There was a big story yesterday. I guess they're like, he has a name, and it's like then tell it to us.
Maybe Yoda is like the Dalai Lama.
Yeah, it's gonna be something stupid like Baby McYoderson because it's Star Wars, and General Grievous, Angry McGrievous.
It's gonna be like
Cutie Pie McBig Ears,
like that.
The only other named Yoda species that we have is Yaddle. So if that's the case, then we know that it has to start with a Y. So how about Yiggy?
How about why not?
Oh no! They probably give him some name like Yggdrasil or some dumb. They'll find a way of making it dumb.
No,
they could make him
their one shining beacon.
Yes, and they always do dumb things.
Dude, I watched the entire series, and I don't think they did a dumb thing in that entire series.
No, I'm going to say exposing the krill farmers to pointed stick technology was kind of dumb.
Yeah.
It turns out Nate
isn't there someone planetside? You don't need a shock trooper to show you to sharpen a wooden pole. Like,
I don't know. It worked in the Three Amigos.
I feel like we could have a spin-off podcast where Nate talks about Native Enlightenment strategies and
Uplift strategies.
Do you all know about throwing big rocks at people? Let me show you about throwing big rocks.
I want to put forward a proposal to the committee. So in the 70s, 1979, early 80s, right? So we had all these stormtroopers. And they were just, stormtrooper, right? Shoot them, kill them, whatever. Super disposable. We can all agree on that. We also had G.I. Joe with disposable robot soldiers, disposable robot. And like anytime a human or a human-like being was near an explosion, they always were blown away and they got up and ran away, right? Because they would never show a death. But if it was a robot, it's fine. Let's murder the robot, or let's murder the ghost, or what? As long as it's not a human, we're not going to scar the delicate sensibilities.
PG.
And if you think about it, right, stormtroopers were just that, right? But now we're in this modern age where stormtroopers are people. They're often kidnapped children who are being brought into it, and we're murdering them like crazy, right? So I would say that this is an inconsistency in Star Wars that I think should be addressed. And they had a chance to do it in Rise of the Skywalker. They had the whole Janna and her pals who were all ex-stormtroopers. And it's like suddenly stormtroopers can make decisions. They're not robots. Oh, no.
No, they're actually, I read a really interesting comment on that particular scene. You could have fixed, there's a major, there's character arc problems with Finn particularly in there at that point. You could have fixed that with one frickin' line of ADR dialogue where he tells them, he tells Jaina or whatever, the girl, the horse riding posse of folks tells them, you gave up, you quit being stormtroopers because the Force, I felt it too. You put that one line in there, and boom.
You're not a robot, you're a Force person.
Right. Well, you
Force sensitive.
Everybody's character arc. You justify the existence of that entire group of people, and you make that the weirdest scene in the movie, where you have them riding horses across the Star Destroyer.
And I suspect those horses were from Avatar.
Boom. No way.
They had little tails attached. Yes. Mark my words. ILM reused the model.
I don't know that ILM did Avatar, dude.
Well, they should have, because they stole that horse model.
Nate, the handheld that you linked, that Alienware concept thing, is awesome looking.
So, did it say if it had a GPU, or is it just relying on an Intel?
I am assuming it's a Vega machine. They show it playing the RC car soccer game, and
you can do Rocket League on a UHD nowadays, man.
I am assuming it's got a Vega or something similar in it.
Okay, like the one that Rob uses.
Yeah,
the thing that is streaming this exact podcast.
Whoa! So you switched it over to that?
Yeah, we've been doing this one. That one doesn't mess up with my HDMI CIC in my home theater, so it works. Although it didn't start marking it up last weekend, but I power cycled everything, and now it seems to work. So yay!
Yeah, I had a weird bug with a couple of my machines where I had to power cycle them, make sure they updated it. Yeah. So.
There's also on there, and I put this one up for Rob. Did you see the XKCD alignment chart?
I like that.
I did.
I only thought it was a shame. Well, he kind of added the alignment chart to the alignment chart as the central square.
Mm-hmm.
But he could have tried a little harder.
No, that's perfect.
To make the alignment chart being the center alignment chart.
I also like, if you notice, the omnispace classifier, the chaotic evil space does not have itself in it.
Yeah.
That was my favorite part.
It was pretty nice. Yeah, that guy, he still produces. I got to give him mad props. I mean, It's been, 10, 12 years since he started? I mean, he still poops out good cartoons.
Yep, he is. He shoots probably, I'd say, at 66%. I'd say Penny Arcade probably only shooting at a third.
I don't read Penny Arcade regularly anymore. I mean, is it worth it?
Sometimes.
Okay.
It turns out 30% of the time, it sounds roughly.
Yeah. But the mental cost for reading a half a dozen comics is not high. You can read one of those in 2 seconds.
That is.
Provided you use an RSS reader.
RSS, you say?
Mm-hmm. Fancy technology. All right. What else did I have on my list? Because we're at about the 30-minute mark. There's a good article on The Old Internet Died, and we watched and did nothing. It's actually just about like the archiving of MySpace and like those old systems.
What did you think would happen?
Right.
It should be subtitled "Things Change as you grow old."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And guess what? Just because you type it into someone else's computer does not mean it's there forever.
Right. That's what this article is about. This isn't about waxing nostalgic about days past. This is about actual content created that's being lost because we're not archiving it and these services are going down.
Yeah, but it's a little bit about how an industry changes too.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Now I
guess like we are lamenting it, but on the flip side, I'm like, how I suspect that the vast majority of all written material humans have ever made has been pulped, destroyed, or lost to
the
sands of time.
I don't know if it's really mine to say, but when we had our big book scanning project at Google, one of the things that happened, of course, was all the lawsuits. But the other thing that happened was we had publishers approaching us saying, "Hey, we noticed you have a scan of this book. We don't because we had a flood. We had a fire. We burned all of our archives for warmth. Can we have a copy of that?" And we're like, "Yeah, absolutely." You know, but it's like it's astonishing how often that happened. Like we set up whole industry programs to restore people's archives because it was so poorly handled. And for a long time, you know, these pulpy books, you know, they just fell apart, went away. They had no masters, they had no archives, they had no backups, and it's amazing. It's truly amazing.
It's interesting because historically, we had the notion of the public domain to keep at least like great works, give them a second life. And we can talk about the Disney and the copyright extension things and what that means. But the internet stuff happens so fast that like there's not even like the Internet Archive is incomplete. That's not going to keep up with this. And now a lot of those systems, like how do you archive tweets or Facebooks? That stuff's private. I mean, all the election manipulation is happening in private Facebook groups that the Internet Archive can't.
I mean, we should probably say this for when Clampy's on the broadcast, but like it's one of those things where I remember when I think it was when Clinton went into office and the National Archives had to start dealing with public posts and internet posts and what that meant, because the original National Archives Act, the Presidential Records Act, said you had to preserve all communications on the original medium in which they were written. So we were maintaining Wang VS machines at the State Department for cables for decades into the 90s, right? You know, literally spinning platters because it was illegal for us to shut them off, even though we had backed them up and moved them off. But yeah, it's really, it was really something. Honestly, it's fascinating. You know, and this is the thing about Twitter that a lot of people, you know, they're like, "Oh, kick Trump off." It's like, actually, I think it's illegal to do it. You know, so it's like
Twitter's the really weird case too, because like with all of the stuff that's happening, like what happened to James Gunn, where somebody went back and took a tweet from 8 years ago and wrecked his career. There's a lot of folks now who just are going and deleting all their tweets that are over a few months old, and that's
standard procedure. If you go work for a campaign, they say, "Okay, delete your past."
Yeah. That's a big problem 10, 15 years from now. We're intentionally giving ourselves brain damage.
Well, what about this podcast? Like, do we need to go back?
So here's the thing, because I'm too cheap to pay for Spotify, I'm deleting the old podcast after like 10 or 12 episodes because who cares? They're old podcasts.
Yeah, but they're on YouTube, right?
They're on YouTube forever, so that's no problem. But I'm not going to pay $10
forever.
If you want me to give you $10, Rob.
I don't think that Jake needs to listen to a 7-day-old or a 7-week-old Geeks in Space podcast, and if he does, he can go to YouTube.
Honestly, I'm not just doing it for Jake. I'm doing it for Laszlo and Franny. You know, it's like when I'm dead and gone, and they say, "Hey, I wonder what my dad was going on about with Star Wars."
Did you hear Cliff actually said this? He says the problem that he has with Geeks in Space, he is our other listener besides Jake and your cousin, Nate. He said his problem is that when he listens to it, he talks back to us.
Well, he's always welcome.
All right, folks. We are at 35 minutes, so I got to call it.
It is good to be back.
Bye-bye.
It's off.
Yeah. See you Thursday.
All right, gents. Saying goodbye to all of my friends. Mr. Chris DeBona.
Goodbye.
Nate Ostendorf.
Bye-bye.
Did Jeff Bates already leave?
No.
Hello, Jeff Bates. And, of course, me. I got everyone, right? I feel like I missed somebody.
Well, you missed me. Whatever.
Yeah, really, dude.
No, you flopped off my screen.
I mean, are you just representing all Robs now, or what the hell?
No, I've got the thing set to 4 tiles on the screen, so I see myself.
All right, well,
all right.
goodbye, everyone. Rob the Forgotten saying goodbye.
Yep. All right. Hey, this is Rob Commander Taco Malda. This is episode 406 of Geeks in Space. I just put up the goodbye slide. Subscribe to our Patreon. Listen to us on podcasts or YouTube or whatever. Goodbye.